first. It's more important that the council adopt this thing than it is the commissioners even. I mean,
Yep.
can react from our perspective in the job study. So, well,
It's real custom to have an icon. 80 and up. It's just, 250 horsepower count, no crazy. And it's just, okay, now that's hard, that is, well, it's not supposed to that now it's, well, the supply chain is going to try, the tariffs, right? No, yeah. But I really didn't know if you had experience, I'm going, and the other two cars are 39 months. Or is it Benz?
Can you see if Susan's online?
So I was kind of thinking, right now, how long did you drive? How long did you drive? 60s. Oh, that's a long time. But see, you look at the deductions, Lamborghini. I mean, they have years of greatest stars. So then.
How are you? Sure. I didn't know how to respond exactly, Gary.
He's good to go.
Who's good to go?
Bill.
Good.
Yeah, we always have.
Okay,
What do you drive?
it's 5:30, let's start the meeting. Call the meeting to order. Say the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, additions or changes to the agenda? We've got one item, our bookkeeper in the auditor's office is leaving, and we're going to discuss possible alternative with our financial advising company. So that will be on the agenda. Next item is the minutes. Anybody have any? We've got two sets of minutes here. One is our last council meeting of March 17th on Monday. Any questions, comments, snide remarks?
No, it's not enough.
Okay, we always do that. If not, I'll take a motion.
I'll make the motion to accept the minutes of the last meeting.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Scott will be here a little late. He just texted me.
I'm take a roll call vote.
Okay, go ahead, do that. Thank you.
Darren,
Yes.
Judy,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Jim.
I wasn't here, so.
Okay, next item is our April 3rd special session minutes. Now, those we don't,
You don't have to sign those.
That's
I just throw them in there.
okay. So minutes are approved. The old business, got on there the 2025 salary ordinance. Any discussion on that? You've all been sent it. You need to approve it. It is probably a work in progress with Reedy, so
I'll make a motion to accept the 2025 salary ordinance that is going to be a work in progress with reading.
you don't have to say that, but I got a question. Do you have an ordinance number we can use for that, Sandy?
Yes, it's 2025 004 21 000.
Okay. We're approving the salary ordinance 2025. Okay, you made a motion.
I did.
Judy made a motion to approve the salary ordinance for 2025. Take a second if there is one.
I'll second.
Made and seconded. You want to do a roll call?
Yes, please. Darren?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Jim?
No. Okay, motion passed. As I said, it's a work in progress. We'll continue to refine it. Okay, now we've got resolution for the voting centers, which Susan gave to me. Do you know what resolution number that would be?
That's going to be 2025 004 21 001.
Okay. I'll read it. It's short. It says, we discussed this last meeting, a resolution approving the designation of Brown County as a vote center county. Whereas Indiana Code 3-11-18.1 allows counties to adopt the vote center model, and whereas the County Council of Brown County approves the designation of Brown County as a vote center county, and whereas the County Election Board has the responsibility for properly drafting a vote center plan for Brown County, which plan will take effect upon the unanimous vote of the County Election Board and proper filing of the plan with the Indiana Election Division. Now be it resolved by the County Council of the County of Brown that Brown County is approved to operate as a vote center county upon the required approval and filing of the county vote center plan. That was section 1. Section 2, this resolution shall be effective and in full force on and after its passage, all as by law provided. Any questions, discussion?
Susan read that.
Yes. I'll take a motion to approve it.
Make a motion to approve. Second.
All in favor? I'll take the roll call.
Darren?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes. Okay. New business. Mary Wirtz and Mallory Rockwell, their benefits.
Good evening. Since 1986, Community Corrections has been grant funded through the Indiana Department of Corrections, and since 2020, Pretrial Services has received grant funds from the Indiana Office of Court Services. Each year, grant applications are due in April for the next calendar year. With these applications, both myself and Judge Wirtz have requested for funding for salaries, fringe benefits, and other operational costs within our budgets. We request information on fringe benefits from the auditor's office every year to either receive updated costs or confirm that costs are still accurate. In spring of 2024, the county had health insurance through SIHO. When we requested information for insurance costs, we were provided the cost for an employee only would be $338.71 per month, and that an employee plus one or family, the cost would be $746.67 per month. We reconfirmed these numbers in May, and when there were questions as to if that was our actual insurance cost per employee. In September or October of 2024, the county decided to switch insurances and now has health insurance through Anthem, which we all know. With this new insurance company, both the judge and myself needed to ensure that the costs that we budgeted for were still accurate. The numbers we were provided for Anthem was $525.12 per pay for an employee and $135 or $1,035.23 per pay for an employee plus one. This cost was drastically different than the previous insurance costs that we were provided, and questions were raised. With the numbers provided by the auditor's office in the spring of 2024 for SIHO, the annual cost for an employee-only plan was $4,064.52, and an employee plus one or family was $8,960.04. With Anthem, the annual cost for an employee-only plan is $12,602.88 per year, and an employee plus one is $24,845.52 per year. This causes a major deficit in our 2025 budgets for both community corrections and pretrial services, as those budgets had to be submitted in April of 2024. It was revealed through the questions and drastic differences that grant-funded entities and positions historically have only been charged the admin portion of the insurance bill that is charged to the county. The county has paid the weekly claims, stop loss, and additional coverages and fees out of the county budget. With the potential for changing of insurance costs or companies in the future, the judge and myself would ask that the county continue to pay what they have historically paid and consider paying the entire insurance cost for health insurance costs for the grant-funded positions or entities. And I also have a spreadsheet breakdown of those numbers for each of you.
Can we see that?
This is only for community corrections though.
No, I have.
Oh, you did
services.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
As you can see, on the first table there is the cost provided in the spring of 2024 for 2025. We were given a cost per month and then the annual cost, so that monthly cost times 12. And then the Anthem cost is on the second table on the top row. It's per pay, not monthly. And the annual cost is times 24 pays, because there's 2 pays a year that we do not take insurance benefits out of our pay. Community corrections, we budgeted that $13,024.56. The actual cost with Anthem is going to be $37,448.04, and so that leaves a deficit of over $24,000 in our budget. That does not account for turnover. That does not account for an employee needing to pick up insurance. That is just the actual numbers of who we have on insurance currently. And then pretrial services, it was budgeted for $4,065, and the actual cost is $12,602.88, with the deficit being over $8,000. So we're requesting that the county continue to pay what they've been paying. Like I said, the county has been paying the majority of the insurance costs, unbeknownst to us and to the county, I think. But we would ask that the county continue to do that, or consider taking on the entire insurance cost, as health insurance costs are continuously changing, or if the county was to change companies again, which then would affect budgets, as our budgets are due in the spring of the year prior. Any questions?
My question is, why did there,
How did it slip
how
through?
did it triple? And I thought the whole reason we dropped SciHo and went with Anthem was because of a
Right.
cost reduction.
Right,
So the way that it was explained to me is that monthly cost from SciHo is only one portion of the bill. The Anthem cost per pay is the entire cost of the bill, and it's how things were billed. SciHo, there were 3 separate bills, and Sandy, you kind of know a little bit about this as well in conversations. The way that it was explained to me is there's your weekly medical claims bill, your stop loss or reinsurance bill, and then your administrative bill, and they were kind of all 3 separate with SciHo. And so the county had paid that weekly medical claims bill and the stop loss bill, but they had passed on the cost of the administrative bill to the grant funded entities or positions, which any other department in the county pays for it, or it's out of the commissioner's budget. With Anthem and how they bill, it's one bill per pay. And so it's the entire cost of that insurance. So the county has already been paying the majority of that cost. And so we're either asking that the county continue to do kind of what we've been doing, and we only have to pay that admin bill. I don't know what the admin bill fee is for Anthem. We have not been able to get a clear answer on that. Or take on the entire cost of health insurance for those grant funded entities or positions.
but you are saying that it's an increase of about $33,000 over last year's cost, is that true?
For us, if we are required to pay the entire bill with how it's billed, yes. And that is not the information that was provided to us in the spring of 2024, unfortunately, because then the county did switch insurance providers in October. But like I said, our budgets for grants are due pretty early for the following year. So we have to do our best to project, but if we don't know those numbers, it becomes difficult.
I'm not doubting what she's saying, but I think we need to look into this further, work with the commissioners on this, because this, while I don't have the county insurance, this just seems a lot.
I agree, that's why we are here. Because we are limited in our grant funds, and
Right.
so for 2025, you can see there, we budgeted, and we have a deficit in our budget because we did not have the accurate numbers for 2025, and this is going to cause a problem in the future, because as we all know, the state does not have unlimited funds, and grant dollars are very limited, and we have to live within our means. And so we will, if the county is not willing to continue to do what they've been doing, we are going to have to take a look at some of our operations, which is not great, because we provide a vital role in the criminal justice system, both pretrial services and community corrections.
Now, if I understand this correct, I guess there's 2. The reinsurance and the admin costs are rolled into this, where they were normally picked up by the commissioners. Is that what it was? It was picked up?
The
by
weekly
commissioners?
medical claims and the reinsurance or stop loss is what was paid by the county historically, and the admin cost is what was passed to the grant funded positions or entities.
But like she said, it's still like to get a good understanding from the commissioners of what the breakdown of those numbers and what they actually are and how it breaks down. see if we're kind of in line with where it has been historically, or if it's,
Yeah, because it causes a big problem for us in our budget for this year and years to come if the insurance costs are continuously changing.
So, go ahead.
I think, if I'm understanding this right, I think on the left side, the old rate is what the employee paid
On where?
on your spreadsheet. Is that
The annual cost or
yeah,
the cost per month? That's,
both?
that is what we were given as the cost to the employer. And the
Employer.
cost per pay there for Anthem, that is the cost to the employer. That does not factor in employee
So
costs.
these are apples to apples. Are they, I feel like one is, I'm not sure they're both the
I
same.
think it's one apple to three apples.
Right. So,
is what it
Because,
sounds
I mean,
like.
if you think we have typically 2 pays in a month.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
so,
those rates don't add up. to me.
whereas we were paying, if we're looking at employee only, we were only paying, quoted and told to budget for $338.71 per month, not per pay.
Yeah, I understand that. I think, I mean, the 12 on the right, the Anthem cost, the 12,000 per employee, actually strikes me as in the ballpark of an actual cost for an employee. I mean, I haven't reviewed it recently, but I think that's in the ballpark.
That's the 525.12 times 24 pays.
Yeah, and that's actually, if that's the total cost, it's actually not bad, but not to the employee, right? And I don't think that's what you're doing now, nor could do. Nobody can afford that. And so 500, that's over $1,000 a month for one individual. And so that would be them paying the entire cost.
That would be us as the department
As
and
the-
out of the grant funds that we did not have or budgeted.
Well, I think your employee would have to pay for it, right? I mean, which isn't gonna work. A portion of it is what typically works there, right? The employee pays a portion, the county pays a portion.
That is the county share.
Yes,
Oh, this is a piece of,
This does not include employee costs. This does not include what the employee pays. This is the county share. So
Okay.
this is what,
okay.
if there's someone in the auditor's office that is an employee only on insurance, you're paying $525.12 per pay for that employee.
Yeah, I would just say like on the left, 24, 25, $4,000 a year for an employee is not real. It's not a full cost, right? It's a
Correct, and that's
small
why
fraction.
questions were raised and we
And
can.
so who made the decision, I wonder, or did it just happen, or did, God forbid, our vendor make this decision for us? Like, how did we get to, I don't know why you think all of a sudden you have to pay this bigger amount. I mean, I would support paying kind of a portion of what we've always done, but
well, let me
Yeah.
just, we get the numbers from the auditor's office to put in our grant reports every quarter. And this comes up because I've got a report due for the period that ended March 30th. And so I've got some numbers from the auditor's office, but they're based on the cost the employer is actually paying. I can't report that because if I do, then I'm not going to have grant funds to pay the rest of the year. I don't have that much in benefits. And so that's why this is important for us to kind of know now, is I have to make a report and the auditor has to verify this what's true as well. And so when I was provided that $4,000 for a year for health insurance for the employer portion, I actually called the auditor's office and verified, is this the number you want me to use? And I was told yes. So that grant application, that's the number I used for employer-provided health benefits. In the grant that I just filed for, it's with a different provider. It's not, the other one isn't available anymore. And I requested the whole 12,000 and some. Whether I get it or not, whether I get the grant or not, I don't know. But I'm trying to be proactive and see if we can get this handled. I guess the thing is what we're trying to really present here, and Mallory's done a great job doing it. I'm sorry I kind of jumped in. But is just to have the county continue to do what it's always done, which is pay the larger portion of that employer cost of health benefits to the grant-funded employees that we share.
and then the grant pays a piece, and then the employee
Right.
pays a piece, right?
No, the employee always pays their employee portion.
Their employee portion.
Yeah.
We're talking about just the employer
Completely
cost.
separate, but right, everybody chips in, is what I'm saying, where we can get it, and, what do you need from us?
Well, I think the auditor needs direction on things. Is that what you understand?
Yeah, so I think the question is because of how things are billed with Anthem, it's a little different than how things were billed with SIHO. And I think with SIHO, like I said, you had 3 kind of separate bills, and the admin bill is what was always passed down. Now, with Anthem, it's billed a little differently, and so I think there needs to be direction from council, commissioners, or whoever at V of how they need to break that bill down. Do we have to take on that entire cost? Because we're gonna be in a pickle if we have to, but we'll.
I can't.
Yeah, there's no way that we can.
Or can the auditor just continue to take out the amount we budgeted?
So is this just basically bookkeeping because they threw it all into one versus splitting it out?
Well, I just think that now that the auditor is receiving this one bill instead of the separate ones, it's not clean. This amount comes out of the grant fund, the rest comes out of the, whatever it is, in the county general fund.
And there's been no direction, and it's what I was told is, that's just how we've always done it. The admin bill is what's always been passed down to the grant funded entities, whereas in other departments, I think the commissioners are the ones that pick up that portion of the health insurance bills, from what I understand, and the rest is paid out of the health trust fund or whatever. So I guess there's question, or the auditor's office needs direction on how they need to pay this bill for grant funded entities, because it's not just us, it's going to also affect other grant funded positions in the county, I think.
So let's step through one thing is if Anthem billed to SIHO, we'd still have a problem, correct? In terms of increased costs.
I'm not sure what that admin bill is. That has not been broken down or given to me, those numbers.
That's information we'd have to wait to get from the auditor to find out a true apples to apples comparison. We're missing 2 apples, so we need to get from the auditor's office the cost of those other 2 apples, so we can actually make a true comparison of if it's about the same. But what they're saying is there's 2 other portions of this that were historically paid out of another budget line. What the Anthem bill did was combine all 3 of those into one line and pass it off to them. So what they're asking for is that we break it back down the way it was.
Or take on the entire cost.
Joe, do you have a question?
Is this specifically for community corrections?
And pretrial services.
So there's 2 departments.
Correct.
How many employees between the 2 departments?
5.
So we're talking about 5 employees between the 2 departments
Correct.
that this affects. And all these 5 employees are currently on the group medical.
No, only 3 of the 5.
So we
However,
have 3 people out of 5.
correct,
But you could have 5 total. You could.
which would be Heather down in payroll did the
Okay.
math. That's over potentially.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about this until I saw it pop up on the agenda when you emailed the agenda out. I picked up the phone and called Julie. I don't have any data, I don't have any specifics, I don't have anything on this, okay? What I do know, for the year, for 2025, and this statement is pointed towards the council, we budgeted $1,931,960. Out of that $1,931,960, $1,001,000's coming out of the general fund, 100 grand's coming out of lit, 110's coming out of highway, 66,000's coming out of Fund 0706. There are 22 grand's coming out of Cume Bridge. 100 grand is coming out of the health department. 20 grand's coming into Cume Cap Development, and then 405,000 is coming out of the Economic Development Fund. And then there's this Victor Grant 9502 that there was 8960. So we've got a budgeted for 2025 $1,931,000. Of course, as usual, this is our biggest risk, financial risk as a county. So, to me, what Julie stated is that I think, and this is off the top of my mind, it's about 35 grand. Currently, we're cash flowing the delta between what the employee pays versus what the county pays. The county picks up the majority, the employees hardly not paying anything. And I'm going to say that as a councilman because I'm on the group medical. So You know, so to me, I personally am gonna want to get with the auditor, get into the weeds. If we need to get SIHO in on this thing, or not SIHO, but Anthem in on this, and we need to clean it up, get it organized, and then Judge, I heard you make the comment that the grant is filed quarterly.
No, the reports.
So you have to file reporting
Yes,
on actual experience and what was paid out,
right.
correct?
It's,
Yes,
So-
the judge's grant is quarterly, mine is monthly.
So you got a monthly grant, and a monthly grant.
report, yeah.
There's
A
a monthly,
monthly
so in other words, you
financial-
file annually, you have to do daily reporting or?
I have to do monthly financial reporting, the judge has to do quarterly for
Okay,
pretrial.
so you guys have the responsibility of having a report back of exactly what the costs have been and what you've spent out of that.
Correct.
So I think, you know, that's an issue that needs to be addressed. Clearly, there's an issue for the 2026 budget,
Correct.
which we're moving in that here in a few months, right? And then we've got to get really crystal clear on what the costs are and what SIHO's doing, or not SIHO, but Anthem's doing, so we can make sure that you're not up here a year from now with the same issue. I mean, that's my take on what I've listened to so far.
All right, it sounds like what Julie suggested, that we look into it further, and Julie and Jim, would you be interested in doing that?
I'll do it, Judy.
Judy, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we need to, yeah.
Yeah.
Next.
What you say, something, Scott?
I was gonna make a motion that I like directing Jim to, a motion asking Jim and Judy to work with the auditor to
Amen.
identify a cost and.
Well, I think what's gonna have to happen is currently the auditor office is picking up the tab, I believe. Unofficially, perhaps?
The last I heard, no bills have been paid or that they
Okay.
hadn't received
All right,
any.
I'll pick up the phone tomorrow, we'll call Julie, we'll jump on this, and we'll get it resolved as quickly as we possibly can. Okay?
We didn't have a significant change to the particular budget line for this from last year's
No.
budget. So this money that should be paying this is somewhere
I think
Yeah.
that's,
in a budget
Yeah.
line. We need to find out where that.
Well,
budget
and to
line
me, an issue is the issue really isn't whether or not, you know, the county, you know, we've got approximately 27 departments, and we need to have, you know, to use the word equity amongst all 27 departments. So what we're doing for one, we need to be doing for all. So we need to drill down into the numbers and look at that, and then, you know, clearly, you know, we can't turn around and say, hey, you 5 people over here, sorry. Right, I mean, that just doesn't even make any sense, so.
Well, and as she indicated, the county budget's been paying, you know, pays for all the other employees. I
Right.
think our goal was always to get as much money as we could from other sources
And I appreciate that.
to
Yeah.
cover what the county expense is for this
Right.
employee, which is why when they say how much you want benefits, you get what you want benefits.
Right.
And so I just want to reemphasize that, you know, other budgets don't have that cost
Yeah,
in
because you
them.
got the restraint of having to file for the grants
Right.
one time a year, and then you get the reporting that you have to follow through. And when do you have to file for the 2026 grant?
They've already been filed, they were due April 11th.
Oh, my goodness.
So I did include the higher cost in my
Okay.
ask.
All right,
But
Whether I get it or not,
that's a different
That's a
issue.
different-
and that's the issue with community corrections, you know, our budget's kind of been capped as to what we've gotten in grant
Okay.
dollars. And so, reallocating to different lines is going to be tricky because we do also have operational costs
Right.
that we have. And so
Right.
that's where, you know, if the county can continue to pick up the larger portion of that health insurance bill and allow us to either just continue to pay the
Yeah.
admin bill, whatever that is with Anthem, because I was not able to get a clear answer before the meeting on that.
Okay,
Or you see the numbers, it's what was charged per employee or per employee plus one or family in the admin bill with SIHO was not as much as the Anthem bill is and is not the larger portion of the bill. And so if the county's willing to either A, continue to have us just pay the admin, or B, take on the cost entirely.
yeah, well, let's get together, drill down, document, and then get this resolved.
I appreciate it.
And I will call my administrator and say, what do you want me to do with this report that's
If you
due?
would, yeah. And for me, I personally, I'm speaking for myself, but let's not, what can we put in place so we don't find ourselves in this situation 2026, 2027? Because the other part of it is communication on your end back to the council, because this is a council responsibility.
Right.
Right, that if you know that and foresee that grant money, they're clamping down on you, then we need to know that so we can kind of get prepared for it, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I did, actually, just real quick, it's important to note how these are state-funded positions, right? These are technically
No.
to help us understand
They're
that.
county employees.
They're county employees, but aren't they funded?
They're funded with grant dollars through the Indiana Department of Corrections. So every year,
And mine is different, but go
yes,
ahead with
I'm
yours.
Right.
community corrections. Every year I apply for a grant. It's continuously due earlier and earlier. This year, it had to be turned in April 11th. And I turn in apply for a grant through Indiana Department of Corrections. The last 3 years, we've been capped at, I believe it was $232,000 roughly up in grant dollars from the state, but we are considered county employees.
Yeah, your
under the
county,
court.
I guess my point was, since 1986, the state has funded these positions through grants, post 2020, and before that through other means, just for a long time.
Well, whatever we can't cover in grant costs, we have to self-fund or figure out
Yeah.
another
And that's how that's
solution.
always
And
worked. Yeah.
those funds are not unlimited.
They're not, and and so it's worked that way for a long time, and what you do in joining the Community Corrections Board recently and learning more about that is actually aimed at reducing jail time for residents, getting them out of jail,
In
right?
providing the programming, it reduces recidivism.
Reducing
because
recidivism,
Case management services and accountability.
which lowers the county's jail costs and all the expenses,
So you're
and
saying you
so.
save elsewhere.
Right.
What I'm saying is this is an investment. We know we have major issues right now with certain community challenges. And so this is from my perspective, a really key resource that actually you're saving us money. You're trying to get people back in the workforce through work release programs and all that. That's what's happening here. And so reducing that, if anything, we need to increase that resource.
And if I could just address my funding source, in 2019, my first year in, I applied through the sequential intercept model. It was a grant program to reduce recidivism, and one of the areas open for that were pretrial services. And so that's been the grant I've gotten every year. They no longer offer that, and now the Office of Court Services will provide some funding, but this is a new grant source. I think it's to take the place of the other one that had federal money flowing in and the state administering it. And just like community corrections, what we do with pretrial is offer rehabilitative programs even before the case is resolved. And through that, we've actually been able to get people admitted into inpatient facilities for substance abuse, mental health issues, all of that. And I can do that because I've got a person who monitors compliance and who can provide all of that accountability we need. So I'm just reiterating what valuable services and programs these are for our community overall. So I appreciate that, really do.
So do we. All right, well, we'll look into it.
Thank you.
Thanks for bringing it for us.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is keeping the 2026 budgets at the 2025 rate or less. As you all probably heard, we are in budget constraints and we would like to have a tightening of the belt. Any questions or discussion on that? That's what we're going to direct the departments to do.
Does the council seek to review our discussion of the special session?
You mean at this point?
Yeah.
We can, sure.
Well, I'm asking the council body if they'd like to discuss what was discussed.
With what discussion?
The one we had 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure, go ahead, yeah.
Okay, well, take one and pass it. I found extras in the office, so there you go. It's just the top page that I presented whenever that special session meeting was. April 3rd, So, let's thank you.
Okay,
All right. Yeah, and keep in mind these numbers, they're projected. So hopefully we can firm these numbers up in conjunction with the auditor's office at some point in time in the near future. But based off of the data that was collected so far, what's projected for 2026 revenue is the property tax levy, and this is, I'm speaking specifically to the general fund. And the reason I'm speaking specifically to the general fund is that 25 of the 27, 28 departments are all funded out of the general fund. Now, like for example, this conversation with community corrections, they're not in there. Neither is the health department, neither is the highway department. So if you look at the very bottom, it shows, 2984369 for property tax revenue projected for 2026 in the general fund. The big one is $7,025,721, which is miscellaneous revenue. And in that miscellaneous revenue number, a big chunk of that, I'm going to go on a limb here and say 2/3 almost, is lit. It's your income tax. So projected for 2026 is 10 million approximately for just the general fund. So the proposal is simply this, is for the council to vote one way or the other, but to vote, and if they vote in the affirmative, would be to authorize the president of the council to send a memo of understanding to all 25 department heads requesting that they keep their Form 1s, which are due July 1st into the auditor's office, at or below 2025 expenditures. Because if they're able to keep a lid on the expenses, that would be, because last year, total, what was adopted was $9,716,024. So even if we hold the 2026 expenses at 2025 adopted budget levels, that will only mean that we'll have $294,000 left over at the end of 2026. So, when I talk to somebody, a taxpayer, the comment I hear often is, why does the government live within their means? I have to. So basically what this says is we need to live within our means, try to keep a lid on expenses over the next, not just 26, but 27, 28, 29. Because if we can do that, and if we receive a gradual increase, let's say you see a 3% increase every year on your revenue, then hopefully over the next 3 or 4 years, we can hang on to some of that, which will help us get our credit rating from a AA- back to a AAA. And hopefully we could conceivably, if we manage it correctly, could find ourselves in a position where we're no longer dependent on general obligation bond money to have to borrow money for our capital improvements, which would be, to me, the ultimate goal. So what I'm proposing here is somebody make a motion, somebody make us do what you want, but let's send a memo out to all the 25 department heads that keep your Form 1s at 25 levels or below for 2026. So, and then the last thing too, obviously in the memo that needs to be placed in there, when it comes to labor cost, they leave the labor cost at the rate at which they were approved for 2025. Because that's a whole separate issue going forward that's going to have to be pulled out from this, and we're going to have to take a hard look at it.
All right, I make a motion that we authorize the president, council president, send a memo to department heads to keep their Form 1s at 5% below the 25 budget.
One comment remember, the council agreed that the goal would be 90% expenses not to exceed 90% of revenues. Now, we're good on the 15% reserve, so we're good there for 2026. But, you know, if we were to hold to what, you know, we agreed, then Scott's proposal would be 10% discount for 2025, which I think is a little aggressive, but
We could do that. I'd accept that amendment if you'd like to.
it's up to you.
I mean, we can always change it. I mean, you gotta start somewhere, but we need to ask for, I mean, my point in doing that is, and it's gonna be really hard to do this, but we need to probably ask for, and I see people out in the audience who we've been working on in other areas to try to raise funding, and they want us to tighten our belts. And so I think, you know, we have to find those savings somewhere. Now, we all know our salaries are gonna be difficult to contain, but maybe there are other places we can cut.
Yeah, keep in mind, the salary for 2025 was 7.4 million, and we've got 3 million in employee benefits. So that's the big, you know, when you look at that budget, when you look at the overall, and to give you an idea, when you look at the 9.7 million for 2025, 76% of that is in personal services. All right, and then, you know, 4.5% supplies, service charges is 18%, capital outlays like 1.28. So the bulk of that 9.7 million is labor costs, employee benefits, things like that, so.
And so we had, motion's been made. Do I hear a second? Second. Patrick seconded. You want to take a roll call?
Darren,
Yes.
Judy,
Yep.
Scott,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Joel,
Yes.
Jim.
Are we approving 5% or 10%?
5 is what I.
Okay, yes.
Okay, we'll send out an MOU. All right, next item is innkeepers legislation.
Unfortunately, I don't have an update for you on the security of bill passage for the innkeeper's tax or gate fee bill. And unfortunately, we're gonna have to grind it out to the bitter end, it appears, the very last day of the session. Because, technically it's next Tuesday, but it could be this Thursday. And so we got to just keep grinding it out. I know our representatives are working, rep and senator are working to get the gate fee back into a bill. It's a long shot, but they're actively working at that. And so I'll let you know as soon as I find out.
Okay, any questions? Finance committee update. Jim, you want to take that?
Well, I mean, I don't have an update because we didn't have a meeting for the month of April.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, there you go.
Carry on.
Actually, it's not good.
Well, it's not good, but
I will
that's
say
fine.
it's not good.
I agree.
Not sure what we need to do to get I mean, the other thing we could do, and I was hoping Reedy would be here today just to give us a, you know.
They don't have the figures to give us that, is the issue. So that's what they're waiting on.
We seem to burn through some budget, and is there anything they can produce or I'm looking at that budget thinking we should be seeing something, and.
Scott, can I speak to that for a moment? And I'm not, but, I guess I want to make more of a statement. Y'all just passed the 2025 salary ordinance. And I'm going to speak for myself, but the salary ordinance, why that's not passed at the same time that the budget's passed, I don't understand.
It should be.
I think it should as well. Yeah, so that salary ordinance should have been passed, what's the deadline, October 15th, I think, something like that, is when when the council has to approve the following year's budget. So to me, the council, had the council approved that 2025 budget, let's say by October the 15th, or the salary ordinance along with the budget at the same time as they should, because in theory, the labor costs are all buried inside that budget. But because we all didn't pass that salary ordinance, the auditor's office has been unable to essentially close out the books. And because the auditor's office hasn't been able to reconcile and close the books out in a timely fashion, is why Reedy can't get the data pulled out of the LAO system for them to do their reporting. So until we get that, we passed it tonight, hopefully we can get that resolved. Because I will say this, the primary thing that we have got to get in place from Reedy is the monthly reporting that they can do and provide us, because we have got to do a much better job paying to, and I use auditor's language, receipts and disbursements, and especially the receipts on the miscellaneous revenue for the general fund. We've got to do that, and we need to know where we are every month, and probably then have a quarterly report. But here we are right now, the month of April is gonna be over. We're already the first month in the second quarter, and we don't have anything to do because we just now passed the 2025 salary ordinance. Okay?
No,
Yeah,
not okay.
yeah.
No.
Well, it's not.
It's not okay.
The fault is the council, it's not the auditor.
So I would strongly encourage the finance committee to meet and report to the council. I mean, it looks like they've done a boatload of work. Reading, right? Like, is that right? Are those-
Foundation, but to move forward, they need.
They've gone in, Reedy is totally dependent upon downloading the data out of the LAO system. So the data that they download out of the LAO system, I mean, you know, it's the proverbial garbage in, garbage out. So you better make certain that whatever's coming out of that LAO system is accurate.
They're establishing a foundation of where we've come from. Now it's a matter of how do we go ahead from here.
So do we anticipate budget overages in this Reedy budget contract? Because we've burned through more than half of it already, and we're like, haven't we burned through over half of our contract?
Well, that's the reason we did.
I guess I'm
The
not.
Reedy contract. I mean, haven't we spent like 17,000 on Reedy so far?
Yeah, but we never did. We never, you know, that agreement with Reedy this first year, we, you know, it was disclosed up front. That was an open end, and, you know, this agreement with Reedy is to help go in, not only work with the auditor's office as far as reconciliation is concerned, but also with, you know, the commissioners, to work with them, to work with us. So there's a lot of front end work that has to be done to go in and basically get things really organized. I mean, you know, for example, you know, I didn't come to any meetings because there wasn't really any reason for me to be there, but, you know, WIS, we found some issues as we're all aware of, and had we not brought in WIS, and, you know, had the council not have recruited and brought in WIS to do that, we would have never uncovered that. So there's, you know, this first year there's, you know, it's not gonna be cheap, okay? And we knew that, and that was disclosed right up front.
Do we have a budget that we don't go over, or?
No, we did not set up.
So it's open, you guys can.
It's open-ended.
So it goes, you can pay.
Well, we've got it right. I think he's got it on the agenda. Don't you have something coming up here on the agenda with Julie and the bookkeeper?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, authorizing it before they spend it, but I mean, I'm just saying, let's be careful, because we've burned through a lot of money there, and
We have got to get our financial house in order. We have got to make sure the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, and we've got to implement and put a process in place, Scott.
So that's what you're doing?
Yes.
Okay, because I thought
Got
they
to
were not
put
working
a
on
process, a reporting process in place, a monthly that we follow month by month by month by month. You know, because you just heard me disclose, you know, my challenge for us as a council, along with the support of the Reedy, along with the support of making sure the departments get their Form 1s on time in July 1st, right? And, you know, we've got to reach out, we've got to sit down and have a conversation with the commissioner's office. We've got to take a hard look at the highway department, because the highway department is not going to have the revenue that they had available for 2025 and 2026. And then clearly we got to sit down and work with the health department as well. So a lot of this is just, I'm going to refer to as kind of an organizational development issues to get, you know, get the policies, get the process in place. Because I will say this, it would be wonderful if for 2026, we can pass the ordinance, salary ordinance, along with the budget at the same time, okay? That way we can close out 2025 on time, and then we can pay attention and know where we are at all times financially.
The difference with Reedy is compared to our previous two consultants, is we usually, with the other ones, we look at the overview and what's going on there. Reedy is now putting somebody in the office to make that substantially happen. So it will cost us a little more to get those books in order and get everything that matches from the top down to, on down. So it's necessary, as Jim says, we need to get our financial state in order.
Well, I mean, we just had the community corrections and the judge here.
Right.
I mean, this is the issue, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, anything else? Next item is consider municipal technical advisor. And this relates to our GO bond. Jim, you want to take that, or you want me to?
No, you can take it.
Okay. In our GO bond, the way it is written is the ordinance. It says, whereas the county council of Brown County, Indiana, the county, and I've given you all a copy of that here on the council, has considered undertaking. So we, the council, have considered undertaking basically the elements of that are being paid for in the GO bond. Now, we empower the commissioners to do that. So the question is our neck is on the line, the buck stops here. We're discussing the fact of, in terms of separation of powers, transparency, and accountability, as the council has put their neck out to fund the projects, we would be the one who would insert accountability in the terms of whether it be described as a municipal advisor or owner's representative. So you've got separation of powers and, as I mentioned, transparency and accountability. So that's what we're discussing, is the council be able to hire that person and hold the projects accountable. That's what we're discussing. Whether the position is called technical or owner's representative or municipal advisor is up for debate.
Okay, at issue is that we have 7 individuals that were elected that are responsible for the fiscal policy, which is all the money in the county. So if the county has financial issues, there's one board that's 100% responsible for that, and that's the county council. County, that's number 2, the county council is completely responsible with the underwriting on a $4 million note, 4-year note. Now, the reason we have to borrow the $4 million is because we've gotten in trouble over the last several years and we've spent all our money. And one of the biggest issues reasons we don't have any money, let me be careful with this, we're not broke. Okay, so we got cash in the treasury, we have some cash, we're good on cash reserves. Our rainy day fund is $177,000 still, and we've got to, we need to get the rainy day fund back to $2.5 million. We also need to, we agreed to get the 4,700 account, which is all the help group medical is paid out of, to overfund that to an extent of $1 million in case we get some astronomical medical bills in any given year. So for example, for 2025, as I read earlier, we're funded at $1.9 million. Now, on the flip side of the coin, we've got this $4 million that we borrowed that we can do capital improvements. Well, Kevin Patrick came to a meeting on, you said April 3rd, I believe it is, and I'm sitting in that chair, and Kevin tells me that the jail needs a 500-gallon water heater. And he tells me that he's got estimated cost at $60,000. Never in my life, the only experience I have with a hot water heater is a 50-gallon residential hot water heater for $1,300. When I heard 60, I personally, I don't even know what I don't know when it comes to putting AC units on the jail, putting in 500-gallon hot water heat. I don't have any experience on any of this stuff. And if I step back and I look at the 10 people, the 7 people on the council, the 10 people on the commissioners, the 3 people on the commissioner side, so those 10 people, I don't know what skill sets they have when it comes to issues like, you know, buying a $60,000 500-gallon hot water heater. Now, we have a habit of going out to large private sector firms like DLZ and others within the county. And we like to hire these firms, and we pay these firms a lot of money. But as a taxpayer, which is what I am, I'm a taxpayer with a voice. I'm over here going, what the last 27 months, in my experience, is the private sector preys on the public sector, and they exploit the incompetence of the public sector. Because if you're working with people that don't have any experience on large, you know, capital improvement projects, it would be easy for them. So let me give you an example. My brother-in-law and sister own a company, and they do all in-ground tank storage, canopies, dispensers, all the electronics for Northwest Indiana. And Stacy told me that, you know, they do bids all the time. And when you do a bid and submit a bid, you can leave things out of that bid intentionally. So that then later you can come back and say, oops, we found this, and we're gonna need another 35 grand out of that. We're gonna need this, we're gonna need this, and we're gonna need this. So I'm coming from a space that I have a very low threshold of trust with the private sector firms that want to come in and prey on local government so they can come in and exploit local government. And so from my perspective, what Gary is referring to is for us to have an individual that basically reports to the council, that works with the commissioners, and where the commissioners and the council are working as one, and making certain that when we make decisions, we make certain that we have made sure that we have asked all the questions that need to be asked, so we don't have any regrets down the road. And my point in this too is that I was online and watched the last commissioners meeting when you all opened the bids for the AC units. And if I remember correctly, there were bids that came in at a little over 800 grand, and there were bids at $1.1 million, $1.2 million, $1.3 million. As a layperson, I have no idea how can you have one bid at 800 and another one at $1.3 million. And so what we're looking to do is if we could have one person that could advise us, that had our best interest, that knows that industry, very well educated, working for us, to report to us, then what we can do, hopefully, is save you, the taxpayers, and myself money going forward.
I think you said it in a concise term earlier. It's about protecting us from ourselves.
Yeah.
It's a very good point.
Yeah, 'cause I don't know
Due
anything about
diligence, that is what we should do. We respect what we do not know. So putting that into the system would be a check valve to protect citizens that they get the product that they're supposed to be getting, irrespective of our capabilities or lack thereof. Any discussion up here? Okay. We can take a motion.
I guess, just before that, I still don't understand why I mean, typically we do the financing, like you said, and the commissioners carry out the projects, and, you know, this feels a little bit like micromanaging them, you know, and I don't know why I see Tim sitting here. I mean, I don't know why, have they not wanted to do this? And if so, why not? I mean, I'm just, you know, what's happening there?
Okay, let's say it's a process. Let's say the commissioners, council allocated the money and the commissioners were either negligent, abusive, I'm not saying they are, let's say somewhere downstream they were. How do you protect for that? Therefore, that's what they talk about in the US government separation of powers. So it's like you have someone providing oversight and transparency and accountability. It's just a means of doing that in a more forthright manner.
Scott, to your point, Jim's point.
Come on up.
DLZ. Just kind of Jim Clark. This is already in the ordinance. You guys signed the ordinance to that very effect, so we're doing that. DLZ on the bids, they review the bids. They went through the criteria, identified the bids, and suggested consultant we hired that can do the work. So that's how you pick the delta out of that one. We're paying DLZ to do that. That's a big contract. On these others, we're looking at, we talked to Johnson County, Kevin Patrick's worked out to Johnson County. We're looking for other options, what they're doing on their, what you call a municipal advisor, but it's pretty much somebody to give you, the commissioners, insight on these different projects and if we're doing the right things. And they're going to help us also on our capital asset planning and our capital improvement planning. So we're already working on that. Why is that? Because you put it in the ordinance. And we all agreed that particular ordinance that we would have expertise to help us do that. So we're doing that. So I don't know where this came from, but I think it's superfluous. We've already got it written in the ordinance. Why are we addressing it?
Well, I mean, I think that the issue is transparency.
Okay, well.
Okay, there to, when I'm looking at transparency, it appears, everybody publicly is, all in favor of public transparency. But then we get into internal transparency within government. And, based off, I could be completely wrong. This is my subjective perspective. But, internal transparency, I think we fall short sometimes. So if there's a lack of communication, there's a lack of internal transparency where the left hand really doesn't know what the right hand's doing and vice versa, then that doesn't help and go far in supporting trust, okay? So I think, at the end of the day, it all comes down to trust. And, anytime you lack trust, then you're gonna have issues.
I understand you that.
Okay.
So you're saying you don't trust the commissioners?
I don't think it's a matter of trust, I think it's a matter of protocol. You protect the system from there. Let's say.
Well, obviously, you're preaching the choir. I mean,
Okay,
that's why
let me
we
ask you a
put this
question.
in
How
the
many
ordinance.
times is DLC gonna go out on the project when they're doing the air conditioning?
I don't think that, I think.
Twice
they
a
have
month.
couple. Yeah.
Twice a month. That's what they did on the jail additions, or not the jail, the courthouse additions. Now, we looked at that, and there were some things in there, and I'd say the brickwork could have used better supervision.
That was your opinion.
Yeah, well, it's also opinion of a production.
Well, and that was countered
Anyways,
by the
but the
architect, it
principle
was countered by
being
the
is-
contractor.
Okay, but if you're using DLC, it's like letting the fox run the chicken house. It's like, they are not independent. They are not necessarily out for our interests. It's inherent to the
Well, Gary, at
system.
this meeting, you agreed to DLZ being the contract manager over that particular project.
I did?
Yes, you did.
When did I do that?
Well, one of your council meetings, this whole issue came up and they asked, do we have to hire a separate person for that? And we say, hey, we've got DLZ on that AC contracts and you
I'm
acknowledge
not
that.
so sure that that's where I
Go
came
back and
down.
look at your
You know what I mean?
minutes. I remember.
No, what is the problem
Benny, what's
with-
the issue here? You
What
guys,
is the problem
we're gonna
with having an
address that.
independent, objective advisor representing the council? Is that not transparent, not representing the people? Is that not transparent? Would that not be more
Well, I don't
transparent?
understand.
In case
We
something
identified
happened.
that in the ordinance, a specific requirement is in the ordinance, and we're addressing that on the commissioner side. So if we need to have a meeting to discuss how we're gonna do that and roll that out to ensure we do due diligence, we will. So I don't know on this one, like I said, caught me cold, I don't know where we're coming up with this all of a sudden, but
Well,
yeah,
it's a
in
matter
the
of,
ordinance.
it's a matter of what Jim was saying, it's a matter of separation of powers, transparency, and accountability to the people.
Okay. well,
Does it not offer that?
I don't.
Does it not offer that?
understand either.
Why is there pushback against that
You wanna hire your own personnel to manage these projects? Is that where we're at?
That's just an independent approach, yes.
I think, let me suggest this, Tim. I mean, have the commissioners talked about this idea? Because I know that the council talked about this in our last work session. I think you were there and heard us express that
We're addressing,
concern.
we reached out to other counties to see how best they do that. At the same time, we're looking for people that not only do that, but can help us out on the asset plan and our capital improvement plan. So we're on that. So I
Are
don't,
you gonna do it for this bond?
for what bond?
I mean, you've got projects rolling right now.
We've got the AC project rolling right now.
Yeah, so are you gonna have that oversight for those projects too, or is this some future?
Sure, we are.
So you're in the process of advertising and hiring someone?
Advertising. We're reaching out for supplemental help on these construction projects and asset planning to identify the projected maintenance and repair costs that we're gonna need to go along with the capital asset plan that's gonna back up the capital improvement plan. So
I must have missed that in your last
we're addressing
meeting. Thank you.
All right, any other thoughts, Jim?
Well, one thing I'll address, Tim, is on the trust issue. It's not, first of all, it's not a trust issue at a personal level. There's nothing to do with a personal relationship. This is business. And to me, an issue is, as I said earlier, I don't know what skill sets you have in this area because you've never been a commissioner before. You've only been on the job less than 120 days. I don't know what skill sets Kevin Patrick has. I don't know what skill sets Ron Sanders has. Okay? What I do know is, for me anyway, at least, there's a lot, I don't even know what I don't know. And I'm willing to admit it. And so we're looking to, we do have a fiscal responsibility over the 4 million because we're the ones that approved the 4 million. So we want to make sure we're making smart decisions with the money that we borrowed.
We're in agreement.
That's
We want the best value we get for the taxpayer money. There's no space between us on that.
Okay, then I guess, why would you have any issues with us retaining a counsel, a municipal advisor in this specific subject? Do you object to that? We're not trying to micromanage you.
Okay.
Okay, is that something you object to as a commissioner?
Yeah. Have you caught any of this?
No, not very much of it.
Okay. You want to repeat, they want to hire, I know you've been working that with Johnson County, where we're looking for the options on getting the technical expertise to support these projects. They want to hire an independent person, I guess, to do that particular function.
To represent the people in a transparent and accountable manner.
Okay. So have you heard that we're looking at basically trying to find a construction manager?
No, I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, I've heard that.
I didn't hear it in the last meeting. Have you discussed it?
So we haven't had any, this has all transpired since the last meeting that we spoke. Okay, so the things that are going forward as we come to the realization in our conversations is that we quickly come to the understanding that there are a lot of things that we don't know.
Thank you.
Okay, and that includes even mine with the 5 or 6 years of project management experience I had with regards to managing very technical projects in semiconductor industry. So the problem that we have is moving the projects forward, right? So the whole goal is to basically establish a means by which we can put someone in place that will basically work. And again, the attempt is to try and look and maybe meet with a couple of these gentlemen this week as a recommendation from Brian Baird, who's one of the Johnson County Commissioners, and giving us an actual name for 2 individuals that they have used in the past in their employ related to construction management.
So is this an additional employee position or a contractor?
This in essence would basically be something that we would look at basically doing contracting, and the expectation would be paid out of the GoFund funds.
Right.
That's where I would be heading with that. The provision of that would then is the commissioner then taking on my expectation, and I think what we're trying to do here is establish and identify a resource that we could then go ahead and use and move it forward outside of just GoBond activity. Because right now we truly struggle with identifying the actual routine capitalizing of our assets that we have, buildings and things of that nature. We have a very good maintenance operations people that are very good with hands-on, fix the pipes, fix the lights, fix the sockets, those things, but we struggle or do not have any resources in the county, to include myself, that can clearly identify what are the path forwards with, let's take for example, the one I used with Tim when we had this conversation is the senior citizens CAP office over at which is called Sycamore Valley. I would say an estimate, looking at that particular building, there are to the tunes of thousands of dollars of work that needs to be done, from siding to concrete work to ramps that need to be there for disabled and senior citizens to be able to access those buildings. And then again, I can't point to right now from an asset standpoint, any of the actual numbers related to HVAC systems in any of our buildings at this point. To even understand to say, is this particular HVAC system near, middle, end of life? Okay, so that kind of thing can be done with a construction manager. That is the resource that Johnson County has applied in all of that. So that's where we're trying to voir dire and move forward with this.
I think that's very good. We're not worried about that. What we're worried about is objectivity, transparency. And Tim, you've been an advocate of transparency for years. So it's a matter of what's the best way to put transparency in the system.
That's what
let's say right now, let's say it's DLZ. You guys are relying on DLZ. What if somebody made an allegation that you guys are undertaking from DLZ? Well, if the council provides an objective resource of a municipal advisor or whatever, it's a built-in check and balance to say, no, that's not necessarily going to happen. What's wrong with that? What you're doing is good, but what's wrong with what we're doing to say, let's be objective, transparent, and accountable? I don't see any problem with that. Why the pushback? I don't understand the pushback. Why isn't it just, yeah, it sounds like a good idea. Let's do that for the people.
The objective, again, the objective is that. So in essence, basically, if we go down this path of actually hiring a resource that is a construction manager that can represent ourselves in these meetings, do we need to have two?
No, you don't need to. We need one.
Okay, so then the question then becomes, is it under the authority?
It's a matter of where does it lay in terms of being the most objective, like I say, separation of powers, those kind of situations, to add check and balance to each system.
Okay, so again, my take and tact on this is moving forward with trying to identify this resource. This is just a recent change in the discussions that we have had and the realization that it is a shortfall in the part of trying to do these projects. There's no way at this point, even with the limited scope that now I've been handed with regards to taking on the construction related to the courthouse project, do I have the bandwidth, nor do I have that knowledge of understanding what is required in order to do or complete the construction necessary to move probation from here into the courthouse. So the intent was to basically use this smaller project, since we don't have a starting timeline until later in the year, when we were talking about later temperatures in fall, right? I don't remember exactly what the term was with regards to what they called that, but when we were not exceeding temperatures. The intent is, if you're not happy with us moving forward to try and find this resource, then I don't know where to go from there.
Well, the question would be is, what if two commissioners, or what if some of the commissioners did not have those resources or willingness to look into these things? We're stuck. The people are stuck. There is no accountability. This is the issue. You guys may be doing fine. All we're trying to do is set up a process that says we're going to protect the people downstream, whatever happens. It's just, it may seem to be a problem right now. It's different than to do that. You have to take an extra step, but is it not worth it?
No,
You identified that in the ordinance, so that's where I'm following. You guys want to hire somebody different? You want to take over that
Well, I'm telling you,
responsibility? Is that it?
okay, at this point, the operation is you guys are using DLZ as the resource. What if somebody makes an allegation that there's something going on there?
We're working.
You guys are
to get
exposed. We're trying to
supplemental-
protect you.
Okay, so again, I'm going to make the point here is that we come to that realization and we're making an effort to move forward to bring on an independent contractor that is of the construction management phase. If we don't succeed by the time it becomes evident with the project that needs to move forward here, I understand that we already have someone under contract, and that's something that was discussed in the prior administration. I'm not saying that that's not a possibility, but we have to move forward with identifying that person.
But again, it's not about you. It's about protecting the people. This is what you're doing. Finding a person is fine. That's no problem. The issue is, how do you protect the people downstream?
The issue about, so again, I think we've had this conversation, take it at face, or if you want to move forward with that, I have no authority over the council. I only have the authority that I've been granted by the state as being a commissioner.
So the fact that
So, please.
Go ahead.
So, given that authority and coming this discussion and having these discussions that we have had and moving forward in a preliminary aspect to try and find a means to get someone that can help us with the courthouse project, that is something that we need to consider and use as a resource that we can then validate and say, this is the person we need to be helping with moving the additional projects that we have together.
So it sounds like to me that's what you're trying to do, is
Yes.
what we are asking.
Yes.
That's what it sounds like to me. It seems clear to me.
Okay, so that's good that you are trying to do it, but at the same time, we empowered you to do that. The question is, are you willing to submit to the authority of the council and the oversight? Is there a problem with that? Or you could, if you don't, if you say no, it sounds like, no, we're gonna try and do something else. I don't understand the problem. Oversight needs to be provided. We're just saying, we are more of an objective position. We provided the money. Is there a problem?
Your authority called out in that ordinance calls for an owner's technical representative, which can be covered by a construction manager. That person is capable and should have the skill sets in order to accomplish
It's not the
oversight.
person. It's the objective process of protecting the people's interests, depending upon if you get somebody incompetent or whatever, malicious, in a position. You guys are doing it fine, but the fact is why not set up a process to protect the people? I don't understand that. Why the pushback?
We're
We
not
screen
pushing back.
transparency all the time, but we can't do it.
We're not pushing back.
Well, you're not doing it. Why don't you want to submit to the
Okay, so I'm going
accountability
to
of the
take a little
council?
harsh tone here with this is, we've only had this discussion since Thursday of last week. Nothing has come to fruition since Monday. So let's see, I'm supposed to go over Easter and Saturday and Sunday to find these resources to be able to bring them in. The intent is to move this process forward with finding those resources, interviewing them, identifying what our needs are, having those discussions, and I don't know if that's a capability, if you would like to participate in the interview of those individuals, we as the commissioners, I believe, would be more than willing to facilitate that.
You're still talking about moving that process forward. We're talking about providing objectivity, transparency, and accountability downstream for the people, period, built in.
Understood.
That's what we're talking about.
Okay, so I'm
Yeah,
confused.
you guys open to that?
Okay, so
No
I'm
discussion.
confused.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I did thank you for the reminder that language is in our GO bond ordinance, so I just thought I'd read it. The county expects professional oversight by the county's owner representative on any and all projects during the duration of the projects to ensure proper quality and integrity will be provided and to pay for certain costs of the projects or costs related to the projects prior to the issuance of the bonds and to reimburse expenditures. And so it actually sounds like we should have it on. I guess, you know, we opened a lot of, I don't know how many of those were bond projects that were opened, but it seems like the freight train's moving forward and we still haven't, at least publicly discussed, as you haven't as commissioner's body, these types of activities. I know we had multiple council members listening to your commissioners meeting and didn't hear it, and so we're all kind of confused at this point, and it appears to us that it wasn't moving forward. So I think some communication there would be good, just talking about those things in public meetings so people know what's happening, including our council, who has all spent time listening to those meetings because we're following it. But we had no idea, okay? We had a work session 2 weeks ago where we talked at length about this. It's clearly very important to the council, not a word. And so we just need to kind of communicate those things. And Kevin, you mentioned the courthouse project. Forgive me, I'm blanking on what we were doing there. I know we've got some outside step issues and things, but would you remind us?
The courthouse project in and of itself is basically moving the correction. I always get them confused. It's not corrections, it's probation. It's
Corrections.
Mallory
Yeah.
and her team, corrections, moving into the first floor of the courthouse where they reside up here in this space. So that in essence is creating 2 new offices and a service window in the first floor of the courthouse. Okay, and that is a project that has been, I'm sure, well aware of. It's not moved forward since the issuance of the bond, which is in November.
I guess, Mike, and so why are they moving?
They want to, it's a bit more efficient with probation.
In essence, it's to
And they can
basically
save one
create
person, too.
cohesiveness in their group
Okay.
because probation is there in the same building.
Okay, so we got office space freeing up over here, which is
Yes.
good, right? What are we gonna do with that?
I have no idea.
We don't know what we're doing with this. We have no idea what we're doing with the offices. We're
Not yet. At this point, I can, again, you have to be careful here because we're going through and talking about expenditures of fund, and right now, I do not know if we, as a commissioner's body, yet, it's something that has to be investigated, if we can proceed forward with actually doing design work. That is actually going to take someone to actually come in and do actual design work.
I
to
guess the
go
question
through
you got
those
there,
walls.
what you're using it for. There's no opportunities to use it for something that you're aware of yet, or the office space?
There's plenty of space, there's plenty of things that we haven't discussed in any form or fashion. Personally, myself, I believe we need to go through the exercise of reallocating space for commissioner's office. There needs to be reallocation of space at the surveyor's office. There needs to be space that's allocated for conference rooms and things of that nature. But that is, again, that's my perspective on that. That's not necessarily a consensus of the commissioners.
And that's a secondary issue to what they're talking about.
It
The
is,
primary
it is.
issue is getting corrections into the courthouse where they are more efficient dealing with the cases that are directly related to the court
Sure,
operations.
didn't mean to get you off track, but
And what
yeah.
is gonna happen, and it's gonna open up, it's secondarily gonna open up some office space that's gonna have to be dealt with, but that's
Yeah, we need to
not the
talk about that
primary,
too.
that's not the primary reason for doing what they're doing. They're trying to get the courthouse operations and
Sure.
proceedings more efficiently running.
I think the issue on the table comes back to, and what we should keep it to, is are we willing to sit down and talk about what's the best way to provide objectivity, transparency, and accountability to the people?
There's a question on that. When you're interviewing for a construction supervisor, what are the terms that you're wanting for that construction supervisor? On-site daily, on-site?
So the working condition that I've had gathered from Johnson County Commissioner Brian Baird, who is a person who did construction his entire life, his recommendation is that those resources need to have some level of architectural and design background, and that they are basically, the way that they're currently working, which again, this is all preliminary, folks, okay? In that they basically work on an as-needed basis. It is left to them to define their schedule as it needs to be based on the work that we give them, okay? And it's basically, the way they have it set up is to not to exceed contract in a year's time frame. Now, based on their experience and their history, they have issued a not to exceed contract to that person. That person has never even gotten more than $25,000 into all the projects that Johnson County is doing themselves. All right? So, again,
That's excellent.
it is a thing a work in progress.
That's excellent. What about protecting the people downstream? If somebody, one of your people was incompetent, didn't know it, and wanted to do it their own way or whatever, how do we protect the people's money?
So we protect the people's money by doing what we're trying to do.
We can protect the community first and foremost. You know, one of the observations in the last 27 months is, and I'm going to call them, we have these reciprocal conversations, and we go over and over and over and over the same thing. And we don't ever get anything accomplished, number one. Number two, it's because we don't ever put anything in writing. This is the first time ever that I was brought to my attention that you've got this stuff going on with the courthouse and moving offices around. Had no idea. None.
Okay, so
None.
that is the project on the bond.
Okay, I don't even remember that project being in the bond. I do remember so I'm not gonna get in and drill down in the weeds on this thing. But to me, if what we're talking is we, the council, are responsible for allocating the funds. And I'm gonna speak for myself personally. The days of the council blindly handing out money and then letting whomever do whatever they wanna do are over. We cannot afford it. We can't have a department head submitting in their Form 1 that 2026, we're gonna spend $405,000 on fuel costs through Premier Ag. We've got to start asking questions of how did you arrive at that 405? We have got to start asking questions on all of our line items, all of our departments, all of the stuff in the pipe that's coming down, you know, and we get, you know, we have got to have an open line of communication. We're gonna have to put some sort of process in place. Everything needs to be very well documented, okay? Because the council really is going to have to step in and manage the county's finances going forward. We can no longer afford to conduct business like it's been conducted. You know, and I'll just speak for for the last 27 months and what I've experienced over the last 27 months. The county's gonna hit the wall if we continue to do that. And I think that is at the core of this issue. So, how do we improve the line of communication between the council, between the commissioners? I personally have no interest. I don't want your job. I'm not interested in trying to micromanage anyone. But what I do know, and you said it best, I don't know what I don't know. I have no idea of what factors or criteria I would use to even look and try to recruit, what do you call them, a construction engineer? I have no idea. I mean, I don't have the skill sets to do that. So, that's a problem. And we've got 9 other people, and I don't know if the 9 other people have the skill sets to do that or not. What I do know is, and I said this in an email that I sent out, and what amazes me is I'm 65 years old. I have voted in every election since 1980, fall of 1980. And I've been in this county going on 18 years. I have voted every election. I have voted for people that I had not a clue of who I was voting for, number one. And number two, I voted for the person without a clue of what their job responsibility was going to be and whether or not they had the skill sets to do the job that I voted for them in. Okay? And we all do that every election period. We hire people, get them in there, and we assume that they have the skill sets. So I think at the core of this is that there's 10 of us, and we all bring different skill sets to the table. But I've never been in government before until January 1 of 2023, and there's still a lot that I don't know, And so to me at the core is how do we improve the flow of communication? And I think at the very core, and how do we make certain that we are using the monies that we have at the most effective way that we can, all right, and we're not making bad decisions.
As Jim mentioned, historically, you guys come and ask for money, and there was a project that came about, we wasted $153,000 on it. Never went anywhere, but we blew $153,000. If we'd have had a person in the loop who was accountable of this nature, we probably wouldn't have done that. Same thing possibly on the courthouse. People professionally have said, well, we paid for a Cadillac and we got maybe a Volkswagen. I don't want to do that. Why can't we work this out such that we both inherently provide accountability? So it depends on what people, you guys have 3 people in there. If we don't get the right 3 people in there, we're subject to who knows what. That's all we're asking is say, hey, you guys respect what the process holds, we do a little oversight. No, it's not personal. It's just the process.
So again, it goes back to having the conversation as it goes forward. Again, we're on a Monday.
Yeah, right. Let's go forward and talk. You want to do that?
That's fine with me. I don't have a problem with that. I don't think Tim has a problem with that as we go through and identify this. The criteria that I want to clearly have defined for us is, my plan is looking at trying to find this resource, interview this resource, bring them forth, okay, to exercise what is taking place at the courthouse. If I can have that happen, that will be a small enough project to give us the wherewithal to understand the skill sets that individual brings forth and how it's managed. It is covered under the GO bond because it is under the construction of the courthouse as it's taking place there, along with the stairs and everything in it. It was from my understanding. Now, I don't know where the communications missed there, but we're in a whole new world, folks. You've got 3 commissioners standing over here saying, we want to move it forward. We want to move it forward for the good of the people.
Okay, so you're willing. Okay, and let me quote Solomon, the wisest man in the world. He says, how does he know his son's not going to be an idiot? You guys may be doing fine, but how do we know we're not gonna get a couple of
Okay,
idiots?
and then I'm
in
going to go back to knowing Christ and of himself. We follow my faith will lead me down to the sovereign plan of
there? That
God.
doesn't mean you don't put,
All right, you
no,
two.
no, yeah, we get a spiritual. That doesn't mean you don't put constraints in order to protect ourselves.
That's correct. But again, at the end of the day, if you don't remove those constraints from being operated in the flesh and don't place them in Christ's hands and move that forward, how can I then even assuredly say that I'm operating in the best interest of the people of Brown County?
Well, that's why we're respecting the human nature of it. That's why there's oversight, totally.
Hey, let's go and throw out a suggestion. Can we table this conversation? Let's table the conversation. Let's put our heads together. Let's see if we can put something in writing between the commissioners and the council that we sign off on, that we're in agreement of how we're going to conduct business going forward in the context of this subject matter.
Okay.
If we're objective, we're rational, and we take our egos out of it, what's in the best interest of the taxpayer? How do we work together going forward to make sure that we're, anyway, I've said enough. Thanks.
Yeah, all right. I don't know if it needs.
So I'm going to answer to your question to table that, but I have no time to wait, so we can move these things forward. But I am going to proceed forward with trying to identify these resources.
That's fine.
That's fine, but we're just talking about the overall process for the downstream.
Let's get something in writing together.
And as we're sitting here and bringing things forth, I will bring one thing forth. This is simply a discussion with regards to the GO bond. My expectation is that this is a resource that we need to dramatically and seriously consider using going forward. And if we're going to go and really bring and hold ourselves accountable and bring expertise to the table to manage the capital assets and the improvements that we need.
Totally agree.
So that is then not only GO bond, but looking at how we move this thing forward as it relates to.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
That's, but I'm asking is, let's work together, let's get a document in writing between the council and the commissioners. I asked for this, months ago, actually. And, because that's your responsibility, not mine. I don't want to micromanage you, but I do want to be informed, up to date, know what's going on, because, Kevin, I don't know if you remember this or not, and I probably shouldn't even bring it up, but I'm going to. Okay?
Here comes the grenade, you got the pin pulled.
Okay. In a county far, far away,
Yeah.
there was a commissioner that went out and decided that they wanted to spend a bunch of money on one of their buildings. So they went out and they got a grant to cover DLZ. And they hired DLZ. DLZ does it, they submit the bids, they submitted the bids. The bids come back at $1.5 million. They didn't approve the bids the fourth quarter. They resubmitted the bids the first quarter of the following year. The bids came back a little lower. They then, I don't know if they accepted the bid right then and there, but all I know is in a 6-month window, what I witnessed is we argued back and forth over the bid. We argued over what was going to be done, how it was going to be done. We argued over the cost. But what was never brought up is how are we going to pay for it? So before we do anything, you always start with how are we going to pay for it? Where's the money going to come from? Right? And we've got to ask that question. It's going to be the very first question that we ask before we do anything. We don't wait until the end, and decide that,
Along with that, just as a background, DLZ said we could do the job for $500,000 to $600,000, and the bids come in at 1.2. We would like to have independent technical resources in there to support the people so that we're not sold a bill of goods. I'm not saying they did, I'm just saying that there's a discrepancy there. By any means, we'd like to have some independent technical oversight. So we're going to look forward to talking to you guys and go forth from there.
So I'm going to do, and I'm going to loft this back that way.
Let's not do this too long, that's the end of the lofting.
The lobbing it back this way is you have 2 new commissioners Okay?
Right.
And at this point in time, I hope that basically those two commissioners have demonstrated the willingness to work within the organization, work with council, and but again, it's a learning cycle. And I am a little young under the gills as being a commissioner, and I'm going to use that excuse. I give myself 12 months, I won't be able to use that excuse. But the point being is, it needs to be, the point brought forward is, we operate in what's the best interest. That is what it's in my heart. I'm hoping that's the case for the others.
Okay, are those two commissioners striving for transparency and accountability to the people?
I wouldn't even say it's just two. I don't ever want to discount.
You just use two, I'm going with that.
Sit there and say.
So, we just want to strive for transparency and objectivity and accountability to people. So we'll go forth from there, we'll talk, appreciate it. It's a good discussion, good discussion. Glad that people could be there to partake of it. So.
Any other question, gentlemen, ladies?
Don't anyone dare ask a question.
Did I miss anything, Mr. Clerk?
I got one two-part question.
Glad I was.
There, you should be late. Okay, next item is bookkeeper. We were apprised just today that our bookkeeper in the auditor's office is quitting. Payroll. I'm sorry, I got it wrong. Payroll, yes, right. And we talked to Lori Seeland, Julie did, that's right. Julie did, and she suggested we might want to use Reedy, our financial services, for a short time until Lori Seeland gets this all worked out, because we may be paying enough money for our payroll, therefore not getting people who are going to stick around. No reflection at all on anybody who's there, just that we got to do our job right. So I handed out to the council an email from Reedy that talked about what they might be able to do on that. This is one of those questions came up earlier from Scott. We didn't know this was going to come about. It may cost us more. We'll see. Just at this point, there's no decision to be made, but to be aware of the factor that may be coming down.
Jim, remind me how many employees we have?
Well, 12/31 of 2024, we had 174.
Okay. That's $7 an employee to process payroll, so not terrible.
Do what?
$7 an employee.
You mean for what Reedy's?
For what Reedy's proposing.
$7.
Per pay, per employee, roughly, if I did the math.
Really?
It's not bad.
$7?
Yeah, it could be a little more.
Where'd you see that?
I just did the math.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
whatever, just be aware of that information. We need.
When does the payroll person leave?
When? I think it's going to be on the 16th.
16th of May.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need to set an artificial deadline to get, to be able to go in and do the fact finder, do the discovery, do the fact finding, and be able to be in a position to, where the council can make a well-informed decision. Fair?
Well, this would probably come down to the finance committee involvement too, because we're.
I mean, Gary, what I'm saying is, I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what questions I should be asking. You know, the person's leaving. We need to have a conversation with Caitlin. We clearly need to have a conversation with WIS, with Lori Sheely or Sheila or whatever her name is. So we, you know, A, we gotta have a conversation with Julie. B, we gotta have a conversation with Caitlin Schaefer. C, we probably need to speak with, you know, Lori Sheelan with WIS. You know, because we got a new job description that the commissioners are going to, at some point in time, approve for that payroll position. At the last special session meeting on April, whatever that date was, that we had a few weeks ago. At that meeting, Julie floated the idea of, do we outsource the payroll? And that's good questions, I have no idea. But I have not had time to go in and do the research necessary to start looking to see if that idea has any merit at all. So we're gonna have to, so the date, what's the date? April the 22nd, 21st? So the month ends next week, is the month over?
May I make a suggestion while you and Judy are in the auditor's office with the,
Well, we can't conflate, these are two separate issues, so we can, but I guess what I'm wanting to do, Gary, Mr. President,
yes, sir.
is set a deadline, because if we don't set a deadline, then nothing happens. And set a deadline of having this addressed by such and such a date.
Next Wednesday's the 30th.
Next Wednesday's the 30th. And Judy Swift, is this, if you and I are tasked with the responsibility of looking into this community correction issue, right?
If we can do it this week, I'll.
Well, I can't do it this week. This week's out of the question.
Well, then you need to find somebody else.
Yeah, Judy's got some constraints, she'll be out of town, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have some phone calls with Julie and drill down and do some basic fact gathering.
But I mean, I'll be glad to get some calls into her and that
I
kind
mean, we gotta do some fact, I don't need that, I'm not, anyway, we need to get a deadline, actually, we need a deadline for both of these issues. So we got May 16th, so we've got our finance committee coming up, right?
Yes,
I think.
When is that?
it's not been scheduled yet.
Yeah, we don't know yet. All right, so I guess I was just trying to openly, off the top of my head, try to think this through of how we approach it, and
Yeah. You can do the groundwork, we can add somebody to it if Judy can't be there.
yeah, I'll do the
of. Well, I'm not
groundwork.
on the finance.
I mean, I'll do the groundwork, right? And maybe I can get, anyway, a lot of this can be done by phone, I don't have to necessarily need to be done in person, so, all right, okay.
All right. Next item is this additional appropriation, second reading of additional appropriation. All right, this is additional appropriation ordinance 2025 number. You're gonna talk to us, Tommy?
No,
Okay, just gonna tell us to do it?
it's just, yeah, just do
Okay.
it. Basically, it's the second reading of what I presented a few weeks ago, and, so there's nothing really to add on that.
Right, because it was not unanimous, we had to have a second reading, that's what we're doing now. So if we have a
Yeah,
majority vote, we're good.
yeah.
Scott has something.
Please remind me what this,
I'm getting,
Jim, you weren't here.
you weren't here, yeah. Can you briefly, or do you want to know?
Well, here,
Just a quick,
I mean,
Just a quick
Go.
overview.
does this just involve your budget,
no.
Not exactly.
or are you asking to dip into some other
No,
money
no, no,
someplace
we're not
else?
asking you to dip into it. What happened is there are certain lines that needed to be adjusted because they were put into the wrong categories.
Okay.
So we're moving things around so that we can pay some of our bills. There's one last item. We were blessed with some money years ago for a health clinic. And we are asking that that money be released to us to improve the building that we're in right now. We found mold and that kind of thing in the heating ducts. And since now we're operating a clinic outside at this location, we need to have funds to upgrade the building.
And so in short, the automobile that you talked about several months ago or weeks, the
That's part of the
AC
whole-
units, you got mold over there.
Right.
Basically, we approved this, you guys have got monies available to you
Yes.
within your budget.
Yes.
Vis-a-vis, you don't need any money out of any other fund, you can pay for it, we're all good.
Yes.
I know, well, I know.
Scott wants to talk.
I'm
Okay.
just curious,
And I know Scott was
commissioners.
not happy about that.
No, it's more,
I understand.
last time I wanted commissioner oversight. It's commissioner
Right.
building, it's commissioner project, we're spending money. You guys don't do construction management, you're about
Right.
to spend a bunch of money. Tim, I mean, are you guys, and I saw you announce this bid at your meeting. There's, I think, but there was no discussion, or, I mean, are you guys overseeing this? You're gonna use the owner's representative? There's a lot going on here.
I believe that Kevin has that. Have
Okay.
you not
Yeah,
been
whoever.
meeting at the
Yeah.
health department?
Kevin's doing everything here.
He loves being up here.
What's the question?
Have you not been meeting with the health department about the oversight of the mold and?
Yes.
Yes.
Rube, are you gonna oversee that project as well?
So basically, from what I understand, when your attorney was here last time, basically, we are given oversight, ours are our building, so therefore they have to provide 3 quotes, therefore we have to bring it before us, we have to approve it.
So,
And we're doing that. We've
So
got
once we
two
say you have
currently,
the
and the
money-
commissioners asked for a third one, so.
You're telling us that it will go before you, and this is one of those other things we've talked about multiple times in our meetings, and we never hear it discussed at the commissioner level. It's just like, it's not,
Right.
the communication channel is just like ending at our meetings.
So if you will listen to the last commissioners meeting, there was a public announcement of 6 different projects,
Yep.
public works projects. All of those projects, HVAC at the health department and remediation was one of those. Those are things that are all out to bid. The same thing is true of the highway and solid waste department. It is mold and an HVAC mold remediation and an HVAC system that needs to be replaced. So there were 6 different things on our meeting this
I heard
last
it.
week.
Yeah,
I listened.
saw it.
I
Yeah.
heard it. Yep.
I mean, it said we're announcing this, right?
So
I mean,
the
there's more
point
to it
being is
than
there's no announcements. Those are all simply just public notifications that's required by statute. I see 5-22-8 that says that we have to go through under equipment purchases and accept 3 bids,
Here's my
no
question.
fewer than 3
That's
bids.
not my question. My question is, who is overseeing the project?
2,
Who is overseeing the project?
so the oversight of the project will fall under the commissioners. And again, if we find that the construction manager works the way it's supposed to, they can have additional oversight to be engaged in that.
Okay, I mean, the other thing that happens here, and, and I think what we intended with this bond language was this owner's representative would be a part of the bidding process. Bids can be written in ways that explode the budget or reduce the budget.
So
expenses.
my
And when
response-
you put those out without that owner's representative, including on this kind of project, which would be very helpful for this, now we're kind of chasing our tail, we're behind. We
So-
put out, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of projects.
So right now, I have
Review.
provided oversight as the commissioner on this, and this again is why we had the conversation and why I brought this forth and why we've had the discussion.
So if
Anything
anything
that
goes
is-
bad, we can blame you.
I mean, so you're taking account, I mean,
It will not, if I have anything to do
Last
with it.
question, and this one's for Tommy. How many vehicles are we replacing?
One.
Is it just one? And it was because it was the septic high demand vehicle.
Yes.
Can we not rotate that into a low demand vehicle spot and put a vehicle with super low miles in that spot and just not buy a vehicle?
I can't answer that question.
I would-
I don't know.
I've suggested
Yeah, we just
that.
have-
I mean, yeah, that one vehicle has a lot of miles because it's the septic vehicle. How many vehicles do you have? Several, right?
Several.
Did they all have high miles? And can you not just put that
Yeah.
thing in like, the non-use spot and put it one, and if we don't buy a vehicle? I mean, we're in that situation where these are the kind of things we have to start doing. We should be
I
doing them all
can't
the
answer
time.
that.
I want to vote against
So
it.
let me take a stab at answering it for you. So
Wait a
the
second,
process,
so you oversee the vehicle purchases as well for the
So
health
I am
department?
going through the exercise right now, Mr. Rudd, in trying to meet your expectations with capital improvement planning. So we have, in part of our discussions in our monthly meeting that I meet with Dr. Conway and Melissa Stinson, conversations about assets, what we can do. That's where the conversation came forth with regards to integrating them into our existing IT infrastructure, so they are not out on their own and doing their own thing. So these are all conversations that are being moved forward. Now, from my understanding in this scenario that we have, their vehicles, from what I have been told, with the exception of the one new diesel pickup truck that they purchased, which was an F-250, I think, have very high mileage on them, nearing to the point of over 70,000 miles. Now, that's from memory, and I can't absolutely do that. And I know that if I'm not mistaken, there's about 4 of the vehicles, aside from the new truck that they purchased.
Yeah, 70,000 for a police vehicle would be a nearing replacement, but for a health department, I think it would be that's not super high, I wouldn't think.
Understood, but there again, it's a legitimate question to say utilization, and I don't know what that utilization is yet, because we haven't got to it yet.
But you are overseeing the vehicle purchases as well.
I am going to work with the health department to identify what their need is.
Well, we're about to approve their needs, so I would think, I don't know, 5 seconds.
Until right now, I can't tell you.
Well,
I'm voting
actually,
no
what you're doing is that
because
one
of that.
line item just needs to be moved. It'll be sitting there, that $121,000, that's the health clinic money. That's what Patrick is working with the health department to kind of allocate what we need efficiently and how to use that money so that we can go through it in a very cost-effective
Mr. Kemp
way.
has a
Yes.
very, very puzzled look on his face.
Was this the money that Scott?
Yes, Jim,
wanted to use for mental health?
Yes.
That's what I thought. How much money's in there?
It's $121,000. and it's
Gotcha, all right.
a clinic.
I was just curious. I thought,
And
yes.
we already
Well,
checked
and
it.
Jim, here's the, oh boy, here we go.
Here we go.
I'll just stop there.
And a good point, Kevin invited me to the last meeting with Dr. Conway at the health department, so that was very good and appreciate it.
So again, an effort to conduct outreach and get engagement.
All right, let's get this
All
done.
right, so let's take the vote.
Would you accept the motion?
Yeah, well, which way?
I move that we approve the additional appropriations request except for the vehicle purchase.
That's your motion.
Yep.
Anybody want to second that?
People, if we can't cut something as simple as that in our budget, we got major problems.
It's not your budget.
It's not our
It's
budget.
not
It
our,
is
but
Not
our
your
budget.
budget.
It's
It
our budget.
is our
That
budget.
120,000 was not in part, it was
Here's
not
the
part of your
problem.
money.
You're
It's never
using that
part of your
budget to
money.
fix a county building.
Well, because we need
I
it.
think that's our money.
no.
Not,
Yeah.
it isn't, it isn't.
It is
Why are we approving it?
They're operating a clinic,
Because we're being
Oh, it is our
nuts.
money. Yeah,
they're
it is our
operating a clinic in that building that has.
Right.
No, I get it.
particular needs.
I
This
get
money
it.
was given to
That's
us
my motion.
outside, it was outside
That's-
money that was given to the
Your
health
second.
department.
Also, I want to reiterate that health department is governed by a board, and that board oversees the need of that department.
Right.
And then they state what they feel should come before us.
Right.
All right, so there's
They-
oversight.
So they
And then
have
we
their
decide
oversight.
whether it happens.
Well,
And
we
if so,
oversight
where it
whether
comes
we
from,
can have
right?
the money, but that clinic money was never county money. I've
Right,
been,
I mean,
I've
that's-
been down that road
Yeah,
before.
that's semantics, but we can
So-
put it in a lot of different places that are very important.
No, you cannot.
Well, I mean, within that space, within
But-
our rules.
Yeah, well, that, no second on that motion, we'll take another motion.
Our motion to approve, I will make the motion that we approve the health department's appropriation as written.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All right, this is ordinance number, ordinance 2025-003-017-000. Council Bill number 3. That's what we're talking about here.
Darren?
Scott wants to talk.
Hold on.
Yeah, okay, I'll just explain my.
I've got a question that I've been patiently waiting to ask that kind of applies to this. Now, when you're accepting bids, is your policy to go with the low bid?
Okay, per the statute, if it's between $50,000 and $150,000, we are required to accept the low bid, or we can reject all bids and go back out and rebid it. So
What if-
by statute,
Okay, hold on, I get that. You know.
okay,
Now, suppose we come in with the low bid as being a notoriously crappy contractor who does horrible work and is going to screw us. What is the policy on that?
so that should have been captured at the decision-making point, so therefore you would have exercised the right to reject all bids.
Or the bidding.
That's why we need known as
Yeah.
representative, but.
Yeah, exactly.
If you reject all bids and put it back out for rebidding.
So then we would
can you
basically
exclude-
approach a completely different bidder.
Can you exclude somebody from bidding
Yes,
if they are notoriously
You can do an
disingenuous
RFQ. You can do an RFQ and.
contract?
Yeah.
it's rejection of all bids, and my expectation now, without having read that code completely, I would expect that we'd have to go back and get 3 completely separate bids.
I'd like to
Okay, any other
look
questions?
into that a little, because I think there's something that's a little easier to do than that, but I just want to make sure, in the bidding process that, low bid, sometimes you're not going to get the best work. You're not going to, for $10,000 more.
Then make it
you got
$151,000, and we can choose at that point and go down the matrix path.
Right, sometimes spending $10,000 extra will get you $60,000 extra worth of value.
Did you have something to add to this, Dwayne?
No, I would like to be at the end for
Okay, something
30
else?
seconds. No, I'm not into this mess. Thank you.
Why not? Okay, fine, we're at 2, you got the motion to approve.
Darren?
Roll call.
Yes,
Judy?
Yes,
Scott?
No.
Gary,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Joel,
Yes.
Jim.
Yes. Okay, motion passed. There you go. Thank you, Tommy.
Thanks, Tommy. Thanks, Kevin.
Yes. Free booze? All right, you want to say something, Wayne? Free booze? They're not being contentious.
Tough act to follow, I might add. But you guys hired me, as I'm the president of the Alcoholic and Tobacco Commission, and I feel like I should should enlighten you with a monthly statement of what's going on every month real briefly. I try to do as well with the commissioners. And I think Jim said, what was it, what I don't know, or how was that?
I don't know what I don't know.
Thank you. If you could pass these down, if there's enough. And that being said, on the what I don't know, I looked at my commissioners and I looked at my council for advice on what is happening before my board every month, or I'd like to initiate that. Because if you people know something that I don't, then I'm the one that votes on these renewals or rejections of the petitioners on the alcohol board. So I do this as a courtesy. I think it's something we should start, so that if you've heard something or something I need to know before I can make a valid vote, I'd appreciate it. And maybe not on this one, just for monthly. Does that make sense, Jim?
Yeah, I really like this, but can I ask a couple questions, because I don't know what I don't know.
You might ask them, I don't know if I can.
How many licenses are available? There's three-way, there's two-way, right?
And one way. If you'll look at your form, and for the audience that doesn't have it, we have the Hobnob, which is a one-way. They have wine only.
So one way is wine.
Wine only, then wine and wine, beer, and liquor is something that's distilled. And I can't give you, I should have been more prepared to give you the exact figures. I'll try and come up with that.
And is there a
And
limit on how many licenses?
There are, and by the county, it goes by the consensus, or the census report of how many residents, and there's a ratio.
And the state establishes that?
Yes, it's statewide. And then, and we have open licenses in this county, a few. The town is contained in what we call the riverfront, but don't ask me where the river is, because I'm not real sure. Kind of like the Paoli with the riverboat, and they got it stuck in a pond.
So river when we get a lot of rain, then creek becomes a river.
It does. Anyway, no, and they have like either 12 or 15 licenses, and they have 2 or 3 yet open. Maybe 4 when we meet next Monday.
So you oversee the town of Nashville as well?
We do. Okay. In the process, if you got a second, I know this is run on, I apologize for coming in late. The Democrat said it was at 6:30, and I think I remember something about overtime and all, that you moved it to where it didn't. The town, if say Jim Kemp Enterprise wanted to start a bar, so to speak, or a establishment, you would go to the town and petition the town for a liquor license and pay $250. Then the town looks at it and they said yay, nay, and they send it to the state, ABC. The state looks at it and then they put it back to me on my agenda for the month. Usually takes 90 days. Then we look at it, we review it, we go out, look at the establishment, we interview you, make sure that everything is within the rules, regulations, and then we take a vote on it. And then it goes, this is your bureaucracy, then it goes back to the state and they look at what we did and then they take a vote on it. So really, my vote is not the vote. I mean, they have overridden our vote. And so it's kind of like, hey, you're in a position, we got this position open, you can have it, but you have no real powers.
And then once you get a license issued and you're let's say you're in business
Yes.
for 15 years, do I as a proprietor own that license?
As the day that we,
In
I got it.
Yeah, okay.
The day that we approve it, it goes, just by date, it goes 2 days later, because we're late in the month. It goes 2 days later to the state commission, and then they vote on it. And when they vote on it, if you're approved, then at that point, they stamp it, and then you can buy from approved wholesalers. You can sell the next day through, and that's the key word, approved wholesalers. If you look at
How long does that last? Is it, Jim was asking, is it?
yearly,
You gotta renew yearly.
yeah, I think I believe it's yearly on those, and they have to pay the fee every year again. Of $12.50 for a three-way, I think it's $7.50 and $500 or something like that. We're not involved with that, that's why I don't have the exact figures. But then we do what we look at as a review and renew. If we review it, we like it, there's been no violations, it's a rubber stamp, 5 minutes in and out. Some of the commissioners have been to meetings, they're real boring, they're real quick, and then it goes down the road, you pay your fee. You own the license. You can sell that license. If you was to close your establishment or sell your establishment, you can sell that license. In Brown County, there's no real reason to do that, other than Jim Kemp wants to sell his $1,250 license for $1,250. You're not going to gain more for it because there's the licenses available. Now in Marion County, if I can bore you a minute, Marion County, we revoked 2 licenses in, I think, 2023 or early 2024, that were 3-ways, and they were given out to, I don't think they use the terminology here, but it was the gentleman's club. And they had many, many police reports there, and the state revoked their license. Well, then a few years ago when that would happen, they're maxed out. You can't buy a license there. So either you obtain one through Jim selling his business, picking on you.
That's fine.
You sell your business, you can sell it to Scott, he buys it for whatever figure, because they're maxed out, you can't get any more.
Right.
So that $12.50.
Bartholomew County like that?
Pretty well, everybody's sold out but us.
Is that okay?
Monroe's sold out, they're all pretty well sold out. But anyway, the point I'm getting to is $12.50's best you're gonna get, because we have more, you can go get a new one. Marion County, these 2 that,
Once that stops.
those 2 that are out there that are maxed out, we don't have any more up there. They used to go into, well, Joel wants one, so we'll give it to Joel. And then that become not so good. So they decide, well, we'll put it into a lottery. And then you put your name in, be 100 of you or whatever, put your name in, and they pull it, bingo, the ball out, and hey, it's, Gary gets it. Okay, that, and he pays $12.50. Somebody in the state was smart, and I'm not sure how deep that goes. But anyway, they decided then, let's auction these. Let's not have a lottery, let's auction it. And they had one like 3-4 years ago, the only one in the lottery, or the only one I'm aware of, brought 400,000. These 2 that are available now, they're expecting to get between 4 and 5 million apiece.
Yeah, that's okay.
Now somebody says, well, you got to sell a lot of booze, make your 4 million. You got to sell 1 bottle of beer. Then I sell my license to Tim, who wanted to open a bar and all, and he buys it for 4 million, 5 million bucks off of me. So that's how the process works.
So where are we right now as far as the total number of licenses available? Just say
We have numerous licenses within the county, and I don't have my figure on that. It's kind of a hard figure to get from the state. The town, I think, has either 2 or 3 available on the 3-way. So anyway, my form that I gave you was this month we have the Hobnob. Theirs is up. It's a wine only. It says automatic renewal on it, no violations, no problems. And that's why I kind of come to you guys in case you've ever heard anything, and not specifically on this company, but on any. I'll have this form for you ahead of time in case you've heard something that I haven't. The second one is the Nashville House. Had them for years, no problems, automatic renewal. Then we have one called, I think it's on here as a typo, it's called Copper's Alley. I believe it's really Cooper's. It's over here right off of the courthouse, just north of it. And they have a violation. They paid the $1,000 fine on the violation. They've already paid the state for that. But they missed I went and talked to them, told them it's paramount, either you or a representative comes to our meeting and speaks on your violation. That was strike one they missed. So we continued it. Strike two they missed. Now they're up next Monday for strike three. And they've had other issues within the state that I believe they'll probably not do well. I don't even know if they're still open, but they won't respond to anything that I do. But I'd say I've strung this out way too long for you. But I just, as a courtesy, I think that you guys should know what's coming up in advance, because I got 7 people's there and 3 over here that can feed me information and say, hey, I want you to look at this or look at that. Just something I heard and you might want to know, because there's a lot of things that I don't know. I realize you find that hard to believe.
Excellent. Thank you for taking the initiative
And
to approach
I
us.
appreciate the appointment.
Yeah,
And
you're doing a good job.
Thank you.
What's the top violation?
the top,
What would you say the top in your experience?
oh, you mean, well, the most common would be underage sales.
Oh, okay.
That would be the most common. And we don't do, you can be stung, probably will be stung once a year. It could be today or tomorrow we sting you. It could be Wednesday we come back or Friday and come back and sting again, but at least once. And the violation here that says violation paid, that paid the $1,000, has continued for their last time to bat this next Monday. And they bought from an unlicensed wholesaler. They for some reason couldn't get alcohol from their wholesalers. I don't know the exact reason, but they went to Sam's Club or somewhere and bought a whole bunch of booze and brought it in, and it was not an approved wholesaler. And that's a pretty major violation. They all kind of rank amongst themselves. We have, due to diligence on our vendors and all, we have very few underage violations, which is commendable to our retailers or our people that sell.
Good.
And
Well, thank you. We
Thank
try
you.
and serve the people, let them go home early.
and
Not
you know,
early,
pass,
late.
I'm open to hear anything that you've heard on anybody, so it helps us to make more concise decisions.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, sorry.
Thank you for the information, so a lot of people learned a lot of.
And I'll try and come up with the exact figures of how many licenses we have out and how many are available, and that criteria for either the next meeting, or I'll just email you guys. And I like to keep you informed, because that's what you're putting me in here for, was to do something.
Tell us what you're doing. That's exactly right. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Arthur.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We don't need a roll call. All in favor, aye?
You doing okay, so I.
Approved.
No.
No, we don't want to do it.
No.